Starting a business can be a daunting task, but it doesn't have to be. And in today's video, I'm sharing the 5 steps to success if you are considering going down this path. Maybe you want more financial freedom. Maybe you want to be like me and start getting into real estate with the money that your business is making. So there's lots of really cool opportunities that can happen when you're working for yourself. If all of that sounds good and you don't have any time or money to waste, then you're in the right spot. Let's get started down that path to success for you. Welcome back. My name is Christina Scalera, and if you're new here, I teach all about how to run a self-managed passive business, especially one that centers around e-commerce activity and just generally something that you can step away from so that you can enjoy your weekends or your weekdays, skiing, hiking. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you just want to watch TV or curl up with a good book. So that is what we talk about here on this channel, as well as opportunities to continue to expand that wealth that comes from your business. And I know this is not the ideal filming situation, but I'm really excited because I'm actually here in Colorado at my second home, which I can now officially say, if you've been following along on this channel, you know I've been hinting and leading up to this for a few weeks, but here I am, and this is honestly the least echoey room in this house because the ceilings are very, very high. So we have, I don't even know, like they're over 11 feet. And it just makes things really echoey. So I apologize if there is any kind of echo that's happening as I'm going through and talking in today's video. I'm going to try to minimize that as best as possible. I've chosen the path of self-employment, not only because of my rampant ADHD and OCD and some other things that just don't really vibe with the corporate environment we're all used to. I've also chosen it because it was the only way that as a millennial, I could see a path forward and out of like the trap of just constantly working and running on something called the hedonic treadmill, which is just basically like where you make more to spend more, and then because you're spending more, you have to make more, and the cycle just continues. That's why it's called the treadmill. And self-employment was the only thing I saw that could get me off of that treadmill and also give me true access to wealth versus just kind of hoping that my salary would go up and trying to negotiate when I don't really feel like I'm very good at that, and being kind of pushy in a corporate environment to make pennies more every single year, it seemed like. I also was not an ideal fit for corporate because I would constantly finish all of the day's tasks within the first hour or two. And I learned that that is not something that they actually enjoy. They don't appreciate that. They would rather see me putting my head down, working at my desk all day long, even if it was total BS, instead of just like finishing up, handing in whatever they needed, the research, the brief, the whatever they needed from me, and then just like being done for the day and wanting to go home and basically researching different businesses I could start for the next 6 hours. It was like not an ideal situation for me in corporate. If any of this resonates with you, then you're in the right spot. And today, the first step that you're going to need out of the 5 is you have to have some sort of concrete business idea. And a lot of people get really hung up on this because they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to start this kind of business or that kind of business. But the thing is, no matter what you start is giving you experience and skills to run the business that you will eventually run, because I can promise you it's very, very, very rare that someone jumps in and hits a home run right from the beginning and like that's it forevermore. They're just doing that business for the rest of their life. It's more common and a lot more likely that you are going to start some kind of business and it's going to pivot into some other kind of business. So for example, I left my legal career working in corporate to become a yoga teacher. And obviously that's not what I do today, but through creating a blog and learning how to market myself as a yoga teacher, I learned more about that world and more about the problem that a lot of service providers, because like a private yoga teacher is a service. So I learned more about the problems that those people were facing. And then I could translate that into a skill set that then became my job, which was my online shop that sold legal templates for entrepreneurs. I just sold that business and now I'm focusing solely on this coaching and this channel here. So obviously this is going to shift and change, but I'm so grateful for the skills that I learned from picking a photographer to how to write a blog post to how to connect an email sequence to my website and so on and so forth. There's so many things that you're going to be learning and it's going to feel really daunting and overwhelming at first. Please know that that is totally normal, but every single thing that you are working on is actually building up to something even bigger than you can imagine today. And Even though you probably are going to shift and change, it means that to start your business, you have to identify a problem that someone is facing. And the more difficult that problem is to solve, the more you can charge in order to resolve that problem for your clients or your customers. So for example, brain surgeons are paid a lot more than plumbers because having a brain tumor is a much more pressing issue than even a leaky faucet or a broken toilet. So obviously, one is a specialty that gets paid a lot more than another, and not just because of the schooling and everything that's involved. It's actually because the one problem is a much bigger, more pressing one, no pun intended for those of you who have had brain tumors. I've had to deal with that in my family and it is not fun, so my heart goes out to you. But that is a much bigger problem to solve than just a plumbing issue, even if that plumbing issue sounds really dire. Like there's always a main you can shut off, so it's annoying to live without water, but you kind of can't live with a brain tumor. So these are the reasons why you can charge more the bigger the problem is that you solve. And that's what you're going to be looking for from the beginning in order to set yourself off on a really good foot. So for example, when I started my shop, a really expensive, very anxiety inducing problem, right? Something that people would pay a lot of money to resolve. It was a big problem in their life, was to have solid client contracts. And so that's how I started and founded the contract shop, and that was why I was able to charge a premium for the products that are sold there. Now, compare that with like social media graphics. That's probably not going to command as high of a price tag because it doesn't really matter if social media gets posted today or tomorrow. I mean, yes, we're supposed to do that as business owners, but it's not a life or death situation like a client issue. You know, if a client's about to sue you, that's a pretty serious situation. So just keep this in mind as you're thinking about what kind of business to start, because the more expensive, the more dire the problem is that you can resolve, the higher you can charge for the resolution of that problem. And then that makes it a lot easier for you to have a successful business. It's much, much easier to find 10 people who are willing to spend $1,000 versus 100 people that are willing to spend even $1. And if you're still stuck and you have no idea what kind of business you should be starting, I haven't inspired you enough. First of all, there's lots of ideas on this channel. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you like this video so I know you want more product and business ideas. That would be really helpful. Let me know in the comments. But the other thing you can do, just generally speaking in your own life, is take a look at what some of the people that you're following are doing for a living and ask yourself if you could provide something similar but better. Maybe there's an area that they're not focusing on, like maybe they advertise only to photographers and you know you could serve private chefs. So take what they're doing and try to apply it to your niche. Or for those comparisonitis moments when you're really worried about what someone else is doing, ask yourself, is there something that they're not doing that I could be doing even better than they are to serve the market in a different or a better way than they are serving? One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they let these kinds of people just infiltrate their brain, and it leads to all kinds of like the ick. And what I would love for you to do instead, this is more like a mindset thing, but the biggest thing that I have used to change like my entire life is to start using these people as something called an expander versus a comparison. So let them expand you into thinking about what is possible for you, where you could go with this business, or, you know, those fancy houses that you see. Let that expand your vision of what's available to you versus contracting it and comparing yourself to their, you know, year 10 and you're in year 1. Make sure that you are staying in a healthy frame of mind as you're doing some comparative research and finding out what else is out there in the niche that you're thinking about serving. Okay, so step 2, the reason why we spent so much on step 1 is because if you don't have that set straight, you cannot move on to step 2, which is to start some kind of business plan. And I'm not talking about like if you go to the SBA website, they're going to be like, step 1 of a business plan is you have to write down this, you have to send this in to this government, blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about that because that is so outdated and honestly not helpful at this point. When I'm talking about a business plan, I'm talking about what goals do you have for yourself and what realistic timeline would you like to achieve those goals on. So I work a lot with my private one-on-one clients on creating more realistic goals, especially for my female clients. they just tend to, especially my mom clients, they tend to lump too much onto their plate in one go. And then when it doesn't get done, they beat themselves up. And of course, that is not helping. That's not contributing to a motivation to get this list knocked out, to achieve their goals. So they tend to get overwhelmed and give up if I don't intervene. And while we might not be working together one-on-one, you can take this same principle and apply it to your business plan, your goals for your business. And you can break down what you think is reasonable for you to accomplish in the next year or 2 years and work backwards from there to make sure that you are also setting realistic milestones. For example, if you want to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, you can't do that unless you have 10 subscribers first, and then 100, and then 500, and then 750. So you have to break this thing down into realistic goals, and that's much more achievable. If I wanted to gain 100 subscribers in the next month, I could really work hard and I could do that. That's something foreseeable for me in my future. But if I wanted to gain 1,000 subscribers in the next month, right now I'm gaining about 200 to 300 subscribers a month. So that wouldn't be realistic for me to achieve unless I had some other focus on growing my YouTube channel, like maybe some ads or some kind of affiliate push or a partnership or a collaboration with another YouTuber. So I would really have to dedicate myself to that goal. But just knowing that that is my goal and knowing what it takes to get there or what I think it's going to take to get there is really, really helpful so that I can start to work towards that and check those little milestones off my list. And in a couple years, look back and see everything that's been accomplished. You can see this play out really well with my financial life. So just 3 years ago, I was sitting in this exact county where I bought this house and I could barely afford the rent on the condo that I had in this county. It's up in the mountains of Colorado. Like, it's beautiful. I'm surrounded by a bunch of 14ers, which are like 14,000 plus foot mountains. So it is like my dream location to live here. But 3 years ago, I could not even afford rent, like hardly. And every single month it was like, how am I going to pay for the utilities on top of my rent? Because I would always forget about that. How am I going to actually save for retirement? None of this was something that I ever thought I could do. And now I'm looking at having multiple houses, having retirement accounts, having savings. I mean, these are all new concepts in my life. And I know I started later, but that hopefully is just more inspiration and motivation to you, that even if this business idea or even if what you're working towards doesn't happen like right away. I mean, I'm in my mid 30s. It didn't happen for me until like much later. So even if it doesn't happen right away, know that this is still available to you. It just might take a little bit longer. However, if you have a plan, and again, I did not see my plan going here. Like, this was super cool, super extra, but I was available for it. And the only reason I knew that I could work towards something like this, I thought it would happen like 10 years from now. I didn't know it would happen like this year. But the only reason I was able to do that is because I had a goal, right? I had a goal of selling X many number of courses last year in my coaching business. I had a goal of hitting X number of revenue dollars in my shop that I sold. So there were these things that happened along the way that made up my business plan. And honestly, it was just basically looking at my business in 1 month, 2 month, and 3 month sprints and seeing what I had to accomplish in the next 30 to 90 days to make sure that I was still on track to meet my goal. Having a goal, having this business plan, whatever you want to call it, is also really helpful because it helps you to avoid distractions like courses or masterminds or coaching or podcasts, just like unhelpful opinions. Because if you know that you want to focus on Instagram for the next year, then you know you're not going to hire a TikTok expert. You know you're not going to jump in and have a Facebook group all of a sudden. You are going to go all in on Instagram, and anyone talking about TikTok or Pinterest or whatever is not going to be helpful for you to achieve your goals. So having this business plan in the first place helps you to align with the types of mentors and the things that you want to be doing in your life and your business to help support yourself along this business plan. Another huge piece of any kind of business plan that you're going to have, not just in the beginning, but on an ongoing basis, and this is something I work with my clients a lot on, is forecasting. So you want to have some kind of financial goals and you want to make sure that you're working towards them. It's important to forecast. And I say forecast because we're going to try to see how much money we want to make, and then we're going to see where we land in comparison to how much we thought we would make. And this is going to help not just to help forecast what you're looking at making for the rest of the year, to help you plan, tax burdens and just maybe some hiring, things like that. This is really helpful for all those things that are going to come later, but it's also helpful in the meantime because If you do not track this, it's like counting calories. Any of you who have tried to lose weight know that if you start to count calories, it's like a guaranteed way to lose weight because you finally are looking at everything you're putting in your body. So it's the same thing for forecasting here, where if you are looking at how much money you're spending, how much money you're earning, and how much money you think you're going to earn, or how much money you thought you were going to earn, and you're comparing how much you actually earned, you're going to start to get a really good sense of your numbers, and it will make it much, much easier year over year to predict, are you doing better than the last year? Are you doing worse and you need to jumpstart something, maybe launch something new or kickstart a new project to hit your goals for the year? A lot of people will just look at their top line revenue, like they'll just pull up their Shopify or Squarespace or Stripe, Thrivecart, whatever. They'll pull up those accounts and they'll just look at the money that came in and they'll say, oh, that's better than last year. I'm doing fine. But that actually doesn't lead to any kind of helpful forecasting metric because you could be spending more or you could be bringing in more, but without looking at what you are forecasted to make for the rest of the year, it's not going to be that helpful because you don't know if you're on track or not to meet your goals for that year. So make sure that you have some kind of forecast tracker. And if you want me to show you what my forecast tracker actually looks like, leave a comment below. I would just love to know if that's something that would be interesting to you. If if I gave that out as like a template or something for free. Step number 3 is to make sure that your business has proper funding. And in the beginning, if you're bootstrapping this, like I know I was for my businesses, I really didn't have any money. In fact, I had like negative $73,000. So I had super negative money available to me as I got my online store started. And if you're in a similar position, hopefully not as bad as I was, but if you're in a similar position where you're just like, no, I don't have any money, then you have to start with a service because the service is the fastest way for you to start earning some income. You don't need a website, you don't need a shop, you don't need anything to get started with a service. All you need to do is figure out what you can provide for someone and then go provide it and send them an invoice. And that's it. Like all you need is that. That can be the funding that you use to get started and cover any kind of startup costs. Like if you're a photographer and you need to upgrade a lens, if you are a wedding planner and you need to have a website, like these are all things that you're going to have to budget for. So take a portion of the money that you're originally earning and set it aside to start your business. And then for someone like me, I don't recommend you do this unless you're really good with credit cards, but I will say that I did use credit cards to start my business. Starting my business with credit cards was a really risky business decision, and I can't recommend it to any of you. However, it is something that is available if you really want to pursue that route, or more likely if you see something that's starting to take off and you need a little bit more momentum behind it, that could be a good option for you to pursue. I'm not saying it's a great option or the best by any means. There's lots of things out there like grants, maybe taking a loan from a family member if that's available to you, or even something that's a little less risky, like using a little bit of your savings to fund your business and some basic necessities for it. However, I think there's a lot of crap out there that people are trying to sell you that they will tell you absolutely need to get your business up and running. And you don't need anything except for a phone, in my opinion. Even if you don't have a computer, you can get started with just your phone on Instagram, marketing yourself, marketing your services, reaching out, talking to people. You can let them know that you're available for things like virtual assistant work. You can jump on Upwork from your phone and provide services. So really, I think the only tool you absolutely have to have is something that most people already do, which is your phone. And anything on top of that is a nice to have, or it can help simplify your life. For example, if you can afford a website with an automated email sequence that onboards potential clients, that is a really, really helpful tool to have to help you have one of these self-managed businesses, because the emails will be doing a lot of the education and conversion activity that needs to happen in order to convert that stranger into a client. But it's not an absolute necessity. So just keep that in mind as you're getting started. I would say that if you can afford it, the top things that I would make sure that you have are things like a website that describes who you are and how to get in touch with you, an email address, which can be some money if you decide to go with a domain. So those are 3 things that you need to buy already. And also some way to communicate. So that could be via email, it could be via Instagram, it could be just like old school phone. So make sure that you have these things, and that's the bare minimum you need to get started with the business. One of the things I wish I had done differently is instead of spending like 6 or 7 grand, because that's, I think a good brand costs anywhere from like 3 to 7 grand depending on your designer. And that's just the brand, that's not the website. The website's like double that. So if you go custom. So if you are starting out, what I would recommend is what I would have told my future self, my earlier self, not my future self, my younger self, what I would have told me is wait to get your brand. Like wait until you know exactly who you are, that this is actually a pursuit that you want to continue looking at and serving, because I've had a lot of business ventures. In fact, I can think of 2 off the top of my head that I paid for professional branding and a website and all this stuff. And then it ended up falling apart, or I really tried to get it off the ground and it just would not take. So one was with my ex-partner, and we split in all the different ways, right? Like business-wise, relationship-wise. And we had this beautiful website that I was just about ready to launch to serve our clients. And then that all fell apart, right? So that was $7,000 down the drain. If I had just waited, right? If I had waited another year, I would have saved that money and I could have spent it on something else, like an assistant to answer my emails, something that was a little bit more helpful at the time. So that's my advice to you, is if you can hold off on those types of things, they're wonderful, they are beautiful, they can help motivate you to go even further with your business once you see how professional and clean and fresh and fun they are. But they can also be a waste of money depending on the stage of your business, because if you are not yet easily able to spend that on a brand or a new custom website or something, I would say then there's a reason why that's a stretch for you. And instead of making that a stretch, try to get the clients that would not make it a stretch. So like try to make that an easy $7,000 to spend on a new brand or site or whatever, instead of trying to stretch to get that and then hope the clients come after. So step number 4, make sure that you have a supportive team. And this is not something that you're going to need right from the beginning, but from the beginning, you can start to do things like document your standard operating procedures, your SOPs. These are things like every single time a client comes in, there's probably some kind of flow that happens, right? They get an email and then they get a link to your calendar and then they get a questionnaire, and all of these steps happen in the same order for every single client. So that's something you would call an SOP. You can automate those, and you can also outsource those to a virtual assistant or someone like that to make sure that all of these clients are being served at the highest capacity possible. So I wouldn't say that hiring someone is like right from the get-go the best decision. I would say you should start to look for opportunities where you are really falling behind. As an example, for me, when I started my business, it would take me close to 30 to 40 hours a week just to do my own graphic design. And I really wasn't good at it. And this was even before Canva. So it took forever. It looked terrible. And it was really distracting me from selling and doing the kinds of things I needed to bring income in. So for a fraction of the cost that this time was costing me, essentially, I was able to hire a designer who took blog graphics and email newsletter graphics and social graphics. She was able to take all of those off my plate, and that freed up all of that time every single week. And that was when I noticed that my business was really able to take off. So it wasn't like I went out there and I hired an entire team from the beginning. I just looked at the activities that were bringing in the least amount of money and taking the most amount of my time. And that's what I hired first for. And I'm so glad I did that. And then shortly after, I hired an ops director and a copywriter and a copy editor and all of these things that were more administrative type tasks than sales. And eventually, I hired someone that helps me with the sales portion too. So you will continue to see opportunities in your business where you just like really resent doing the work, or you're not excited about it, or it just takes you a long time, even if you do like to do it. I've noticed that's a big problem for people too, is they're like, well, I'm good at it, or I like to do it, so I'm not going to outsource it. But what if you didn't have to do it? What if you could outsource it and just do it every now and then? So you actually really enjoy what you do end up creating, but you don't have to create it. You're not under that pressure every single week or month or whatever. Step 5, this is the most important thing. So if you are not getting out there and launching your business, like actually telling people that it exists, then we have a problem. So step 5 is launching and growing your business. If you are not doing this at least once a quarter, then you will not have a business to speak of in a year. If people don't know that you exist, then they're not going to be able to buy from you. They're not going to be able to recommend you. They're going to think you're full, or that you're not providing those services anymore because they haven't seen you advertising them on your social or whatever. So make sure that you are so annoying. Like, you should feel so annoying. And I can promise you, from an outsider perspective, you're just barely scratching the surface of their attention. So if you are really, really annoying about launching and growing your business and telling people what you work on and what you do and who you work with, then you're probably doing just the bare minimum that it takes to market your business. A lot of my clients are surprised because when I look at how they're marketing their business, I'm like, you're not even putting yourself out there. And they're like, what are you talking about? I post to Instagram every single day. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like, there's no engagement, there's no stories, there's no DM sales conversations happening. You have to put yourself out there in a much bigger way than you maybe anticipate, especially at the beginning. And especially if you aren't really clear about the unique value proposition that your business provides, right? Going back to step number one, that resolution that you provide for people, it needs to be really clear, really specific, and hopefully a little bit unique and interesting so that people remember it and they're able to share and refer you out to their friends or anybody they come across that's looking for a solution to that problem. All in all, I think 2023 is a great year to start your business, not just because there's more resources available than ever before, but because this is a great time to jump in with a side hustle to support your corporate income or to ditch your corporate income completely, either because you have to, wink, wink, or because you want to, which is also great. So if you are able to create this kind of independent wealth for yourself through creating your own business, you are no longer beholden to someone else's hours. You're no longer beholden to what they expect from you. You just get to go out there, be yourself, do the best job of solving the problems that you say you're going to solve, and your business is naturally going to grow. You just have to be annoying about it, tell people it exists, and continue to do good work, and it will grow on its own. You won't have to do a ton of marketing and social media posting other than letting people know that you are still in business, you still exist, and yes, you are still here to be annoying about sharing your services or products with the world. Again, they're not going to think you're annoying. Just you're going to think you're being annoying. If any of this was overwhelming or confusing, I would love to know in the comments below. I feel like this was a crash course on how to get your business up and running from the perspective of someone who's like actually in it and doing it, not just myself through many different businesses over the years, but also with my clients and their various stages of development. If that is you and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, let's take care of the financial piece of it. And you'll want to watch the next video that just popped up on your screen, because that's where I walk you through some of the finer aspects of that financial part of running a business. And with that being said, I will see you soon in the next video, probably from my house here in Colorado once again. And I thank you so much for watching. Take care.